Well, it's been a nice day. Started off as a rainy day, but it turned out to be pretty sunny, so I got a lot done. And it was my day off, so I decided it was time for me to make some videos and show you some of the things that I've been asked. Now, I noticed that even though I have a rather small following, it seems to be a good one because I got a lot of comments and I was happy to respond to as many as I could see. I try to respond to every comment when I have the time. I think that's one of the most important things about being a YouTube publisher. At least you can try to communicate. And I started YouTube as a way of meeting other people outside of my immediate area. So I encourage everyone to make your comments, ask questions. You can ask me good things or you can ask me not so good things. That's up to you. But I would appreciate any heartfelt interest that anybody has. Now, one thing I have noticed is that there are certain questions that are often repeated. So, what I did, I made a list of some of them, which I have here, and I'm going to try to respond to them. So that way you get a better idea. And let me start with the first one. How many meals do you eat? I generally eat 3 meals a day. Occasionally, I'll have four. My breakfast is going to be 3 to 12 eggs and 1 pound of some type of meat. Lunch is usually 2 pounds of meat along with dairy, and dinner is also going to be 1 to 2 pounds of meat, depending on what I have, along with dairy or some other whatever food I have. The meats can range anywhere from ruminant meats like beef or lamb or whatever else I can get. They can also be poultry. They could be seafood, iguana, whatever. And that's pretty much how it is. Should everyone be on the carnivore diet? No. There are people that for some reason they either have an ethical or religious reason that they don't want to eat certain animal products. They should not be on the carnivore diet, and finding a whole foods plant-based alternative, that might be the way to go. So let's think about that. I enjoyed your interviews. Why don't you make more videos? The reason I don't make more videos is because I have rather primitive equipment. Um, I was using a webcam, which was terrible. I have a camcorder, which I lost the power supply for. And now I'm using an iPhone 6 that someone gave me. So we're not exactly on the cutting edge of technology. I'm generally very busy, so I don't have a lot of time to make videos or edit. And as you can see, I don't really edit anything because my computer is ancient and it takes so long to render a video, it's not even worth it. How long did your parents live? My dad lived to 82. My mom lived to 90. My dad was healthier. My mom had issues during her life, including breast cancer, but she did live longer. My dad was more intense when it comes to being stressed out. My mom, although she was that way earlier, eventually became more relaxed. Do you have any friends who have been on the carnivore diet for many years? Yes, I have a friend of mine that's been on the carnivore diet since 2000, and he is, he does, he's a bodybuilder, and he has been in the carnivore diet and had excellent results. He is a bit private, otherwise I would have interviewed him, but maybe one of these days he'll change his mind. You seem to eat a lot. Why are you so skinny? I don't know. I always hated being skinny. There's nothing worse than being skinny, especially when you're younger and you have friends that they just look at the gym and they grow these massive arms and pecs, and they take their shirt off and all the women are like, wow, look at that. But you look at me, it's like I got the shape of a palm tree, skinny, oh, terrible. But there is a silver lining to this. If you see them now, in their 50s, they've been married, kids, whatever, that nice body they had back then is gone. This is smaller than this. They have these massive guts sticking out. When they stand to the side, they look like this. Looks like they're pregnant. So, yeah, I mean, there's a trade off. Sure, being skinny is no fun, but you know what? What's the alternative? Do you ever eat any plant based foods? Of course I do. Everybody does. There's no such thing as a 100% carnivore for their whole life. Now, how often do I eat plant based foods? This year, I don't think I've even had a piece of fruit yet. Now, I just harvested some bananas, so I may try some bananas. I don't eat plant-based foods unless I have no alternative. If I run out of meat, then I will eat plants. Because if I have a choice between starving and eating plants, I'm going to eat plants. But I do follow a simple set of rules. No leaves, stems, roots, or seeds. And that's it. What does iguana taste like? Depends on how you prepare it. Simple boiled iguana is going to taste somewhere between fish and chicken. Deep fried iguana is going to taste, well, somewhat like fish and chicken. Iguana cooked slowly in butter or lard is going to taste almost like lobster. It's a very good meat depending on how you cook it. It also depends on the age of the iguana and the location. Iguanas which live inland and eat a lot of fruit have a better flavor than the ones that live near the canal. I don't know why that is. I think maybe the water in the canal is toxic, but hard to say. What does Muscovy duck taste like? Well, Muscovy duck tastes like beef. I love Muscovy duck. I would eat it more often, except that I love ducks too much. I am the person in the neighborhood that everybody brings the injured ducklings to, as well as the injured adults, the orphan ducklings, whatever. And I will take care of them, and I treat them as nicely as possible, give them a good life. When they become injured or they become aggressive, that's when they may end up in the kitchen. And yes, I will typically take the duck, put it off to the side, feed it for a couple of weeks of a selected diet, and when it's time to prepare the duck, it will be in a very humane and very quick manner, and Ducky will not even know what happened. The only thing that I will know is how good Ducky tastes. Why is your channel called Charger Mopar? Well, that's because when I started YouTube in 2007, it was, a hobby that I had to show other people how much I like my old cars and, my alternative energy and other things. I was trying to debunk some of the energy scammers, like those that said you could get energy from water, or that all these ridiculous ideas that they had. But in the end, it was basically about cars and, it's a long story, which I'll get into at another time, but yes, and I own a few 1969 70 Chargers. I don't drive them much because I live in Miami, which is a dangerous place. But one of these days, I'll make some videos on them, so stay tuned for that. Do you follow other carnivore channels? Yes, I do. I'm always on the lookout for new carnivore channels, and those channels which have interviewed me are my favorites, so I give those special attention. Are you married? Do you have any children? No, I am not married. I never have been. It's kind of hard to keep a girlfriend when you are on the carnivore diet and you are non-materialistic. So this is pretty much how it is. Plus, living in South Florida, the women here are not of the highest quality. If you've ever looked around Miami, you'll see what I mean. I'm not trying to put anybody down, but this is not the kind of place you'd want to raise a family. So I chose not to. What is your favorite carnivore doctor? Good question. My favorite carnivore doctor is very easy. The only one that's interviewed me, and that is Dr. Anthony Shafee. I like the fact that he seems to care about those that view his videos. He doesn't seem to be in it for the money. So I am very impressed. He also lives a lifestyle, and he's a good example of what the carnivore diet can do. There are others out there, but I haven't communicated with them, so I can't really say anything about them at this point. If you had kids, would you put them on the carnivore diet? Yes, 100%. Well, not 100% carnivore. I would start them at 70% carnivore. But definitely 70% meat, then the rest of it eggs, dairy, with a little bit of fruit in season. That's how I would raise my children. Of course, I would also homeschool them most likely if I lived in a place like here. Maybe different if I lived in a small town, but even there, I've seen some of the small town diets and they're not good. So yeah, I would definitely start them on the carnivore diet. What is your favorite TV show or shows? I don't watch TV. I stopped watching TV in 2010. However, when I was younger, I watched a lot of TV. A lot of TV that I watched was reruns, for example. As a kid, I liked to watch the Bugs Bunny Roadrunner show and Tom and Jerry. Love those cartoons. Then they edited them out to make them crappy. They got rid of some of the best parts, which, what do you expect? The world we live in. But out of all the TV shows I watched, probably my favorite was The Dukes of Hazzard. It was so silly, and I love things that are comedy. And also, it's the reason why I got into collecting Dodge Chargers. So, yeah, it would have to be The Dukes of Hazzard. What kind of music do you like? Well, pretty much anything before the 1970s or 80s. Well, it's a little more complicated than that. Up until the mid 60s, I liked just about everything. But then, late 60s, I'm not a big fan of the British rock and roll groups. For example, the Beatles definitely had talent, but I don't know, too repetitive, not my style. And then in the 70s, it kind of split up. You know, it depends. The 70s is a mixed bag because you still had a good variety. I tend to like instrumentals myself, and instrumentals have gone away. I grew up in the 70s and 80s, so I do have my favorites. Maybe I'll make a video on that one day on some of the different types of music that I like. But by the 1980s, eh. Now, a lot of my friends, they hated disco because they said that disco was terrible, and that seemed to be very common. I actually don't mind disco. It's not bad. I mean, there's some of it that's not great, but disco doesn't really bother me. I kind of like some of it. And then by the 1980s, there's a few 80s tunes I might like, but after that, there's there's really nothing that I like. There's a couple things in the 90s. There was this guy, Mike Flowers or whatever, that kind of remade some old 60s stuff that's from the 90s that I liked. And then there was this other one, Chris Isaac. He had a couple of hits that were popular. But after that, I don't like any of it. I don't like anything anymore. And one of my biggest complaints about music is that it's gone from talent and sound to personality. Everybody now sounds like a robot because they use that stupid auto-tune software. And I absolutely hate it. You know, there was, like, for example, there was a song about payphones. I forget what this guy's name was. He's some guy with a bunch of tattoos. He sounds just like a robot. Oh, terrible. And of course, I noticed it because I collect payphones. And there's other tunes out there. I mean, you think about Cher, I think was one of the first that did that robotic sound. Don't like it. So what I'll do, you know, I'll pull out my records or 8-tracks or cassettes or reel-to-reel. I'd rather listen to classical music than listen to popular music. So anyway, I'm going to go. I've got to take a shower and, you know, get ready to eat my dinner. So I just wanted to say thank you again, and I'm going to try to make some more videos when I can. And if anybody has any more questions for me, keep them coming. I haven't had that many lately, but maybe now the interest will pick up. So look forward to seeing you soon.